Today on Hearts of Heroes, first responders team up with neighbors to save animals and humans inside a burning horse barn.
It was just so bright, and my husband said, call 911.
And the owner's like, my dog's still in the barn.
Come here! Come on, buddy! Come on!
Plus, an Arizona family finds themselves trapped in their backyard as their home goes up in flames.
And Joseph says, where's the kids? Where's the kids? I said, I don't see them, I don't see them.
Come over here, come on! With no time to think, these heroes acted on their incredible instincts and saved lives because of it.
When you think about an old country barn, you probably imagine that aging wood and the feed and the hay inside. Well, these quaint characteristics also make them easy victims of fire.
When these rustic buildings go up in flames, they burn hot and fast and can even endanger the lives of helpless animals trapped inside.
Rich with rolling farmlands and East Coast charm, the borough of Lidditz is located in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. In this small community of 10,000, locals and tourists enjoy craft shows, farmers markets, and even a decadent chocolate factory. It's no wonder that it was named one of the coolest small towns in America.
Lidditz has a lot to offer, kind of a small town feel for a lot of small shops and things to walk around. They take great pride in the city, in the town.
We have a lot of restaurants, family-owned businesses that all kind of come together to make sure that Lidditz is a really good tourist attraction.
Aside from small shops and eateries, the area around Lidditz is also known for its Amish population. If you're not familiar, the Amish are a group of traditional Christian church followers who trace their roots back to Switzerland. They're known for their plain dress and simple living. The Amish don't use any of the trappings of modern technology like television and automobiles.
Kind of neat because you'll see a horse and buggy go by, but you also see a lot of the Amish will use scooters because they don't believe in electric or a lot of the gasoline engines, that type of thing.
They are honestly some of the nicest and the hardest working people that you'll probably ever meet.
Many of the Amish live on old world farms, which is where Andrew and Maggie DiCostanzo met one of these families on a snowy night in 2020.
We had just been at a friend's house for the holidays, and we were on our way back from that.
As we were driving, I think we both kind of saw off in the distance just a speck of bright orange light. Both looked at each other. It's like, I don't think that's a good thing.
As they got closer, they realized their instincts were right. A horse barn on one of the farms was on fire.
It was just so bright. It was brighter than like you could ever think that the sun is bright. We drove up to the property, and my husband said, call 911.
The fire was engulfed around the entrance door, which is like a 10 by 10 door. And then I kind of parked the car and jumped out and just the two Amish gentlemen that were out trying to fight the fire at that time.
Being a concerned citizen, Andrew's first worry was whether anyone was trapped in the barn.
I basically said, is there horses or people in the barn? He basically said no. Moments later is when the owner came out of the house and we started conversing. It was like, your buggies are, next to the barn are only 20 feet away. And as the windows started breaking out, it's like, wow, we really got to get those out.
Andy, watch out. Blowing this way.
Andrew started helping them move all the buggies away from the flames. Meanwhile, the call went out to the Lidditz Fire Company.
So I was in bed and started getting reports that was a fully involved barn fire.
The firefighters jumped in their trucks and headed to the farm.
As soon as we crested the hill, we could see it was definitely a large fire, large barn. So you start kind of going through the things in your head, making sure your stuff's ready, making sure the crew's ready in the back.
Just as the firemen arrived, the owner of the farm had a terrifying realization.
The owner's like, oh, I forgot about my dog, and my dog's still in the barn.
Coming up, with the dog trapped inside the blazing barn, firefighters have to make a daring decision.
At that point, I knew I was going to have to go in.
And then, a house fire in Phoenix terrorizes multiple families.
All of a sudden, somebody started knocking on the door, saying there's a fire next door.
But first, this safety tip.
Did you know that having working smoke detectors in your home nearly doubles your chances of surviving a house fire?
Make sure to install smoke detectors on every level of your home, especially in your sleeping areas. It's important to test your detectors regularly and replace the batteries twice a year.
Taking these extra precautions in your home could end up saving you and other precious lives down the road.
On a winter evening in 2020, Maggie and Andrew DiCostanzo were driving home when they saw a barn burning in the distance. When they pulled onto the remote farm, they saw flames erupting from the structure.
It just continued to engulf the whole building, and eventually, you could hear the windows pop out when the glass broke from the fire, and it was really intense.
Just as the fire company arrived, the owner of the farm realized his dog was trapped inside.
I can't even imagine how emotional it was for him. Just his barn and his dog were just both of those things.
The man tried to lure the frightened animal out of the burning barn.
I remember the owner was whistling to the dog, and the owner said, "The dog normally comes out when I whistle, jumps out the window." And the dog wasn't doing that. The whole place was engulfed above them.
If they were going to save the dog, somebody was gonna have to go in. Just then, a hero arrived, Lieutenant Ryan Balmer.
Commissioner Ober came up to me and said, the homeowner thinks there's a dog still inside the barn. Do you think you can go and get it? And I said, yeah, let's go.
A firefighter's first concern is to protect lives, whether it's a person or an animal. And Lieutenant Balmer was committed to saving this frightened dog.
What's his name?
It's that person's dog, and they care about it just as much as if it was a family member in there. So we're going to do everything we can for that homeowner to get that dog out.
Balmer approached a window where he could see the dog cowering inside.
Come here! Come on, buddy! Come on!
The window was already half open. Tried to call the dog out, but the dog backed away and was clearly, scared, didn't want to come out at all. So at that point, knew I was going to have to go in.
The lieutenant's fellow firefighters knew this was a risky maneuver.
You're definitely thinking about the dog, but I'm also thinking about Balmer in that situation, making sure that fire conditions aren't changing on the outside, or that, he's going to be cut off from being able to get back out the window.
Balmer, under intense heat, stayed calm and worked on getting inside the barn.
Busted out the window, pulled that out, climbed in the window at that point, and got the dog.
It wasn't over yet. Now Balmer had to get the dog out.
Kind of hefted up his front paws onto the window and then lifted him out and kind of just shoved him out. Then I climbed out the window and split second of panic because I thought he was going to try and run back in.
But instead, the dog ran over to two of the other heroes on site that day, Maggie and her husband, Andrew.
It was getting just so stressful, waiting for that dog to come out. But once it came out, it was just fabulous. Everyone was so happy, and it was a big sigh of relief.
We ran up and actually sat between my wife and just sat there for a while and kind of petted it a little bit. And I'm sure it had smoky eyes and all that, but it was nice to see the dog out.
Even after that heroic rescue, Lieutenant Balmer's job wasn't done. He and fellow firefighters spent the next 5 hours putting out the blaze. Even though they couldn't save the barn, Ryan Balmer was able to save the life of that dog.
The bravery of the guys to get in there and do that it's incredible.
I just think he is amazing. It was just so phenomenal what he did to put himself at risk to save this dog that clearly needed help, because that dog was not coming out unless he got in and got it out.
Months later, and after a complete rebuild of the barn, the friendly pooch was able to give thanks to the brave firefighter who saved his life.
If there's a life inside, we're going to do everything we can to get that person out.
Coming up, a police officer jumps into action when 4 kids are trapped in a house fire.
And Joseph says, where's the kids? Where's the kids? I said, I don't save them, I don't save them.
But first, another safety tip.
A famous Roman philosopher once wrote, "Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all the others."
First responders are called to emergency situations every day and tasked with ensuring the welfare and safety of everyone.
Whether by protection, rescuing people from harm's way, or administering first aid to save lives, our job is to help you and keep you alive.
So be virtuous and share your gratitude with those who give of themselves to make your world better. Be the solution to the greater future and help spread the word of appreciation for our heroic first responders.
A house fire can break out in just a matter of moments, and it really doesn't always leave a lot of time to get out before the fire department arrives.
Thankfully, for one Arizona family, there was a brave police officer on the scene to make sure they all made it out safely.
Located in southwestern Arizona, Phoenix is both the capital and most populous city in the state. Here, people enjoy the beautiful desert landscape, as well as the rich Native American history. The pride people feel for their community is evident in both the folks who live there and first responders who serve them.
City of Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the country, a diverse city. We have people from all over. This is a really great area, a great area to work in. I'm real grateful to be here.
I grew up in the area, so I did get to see it on that side. And then coming to this side, being able to help out the community, it's rewarding. It's definitely rewarding.
First responders in Phoenix take particular pride in their training, as well as the close relationship between the police and the fire departments.
So that happens a lot of the time where our police officers will be on scene. They do an absolute fabulous job of relaying stuff to our dispatch room, letting you know what we have before we actually get there, because a lot of times they are first on scene.
Our jobs as police officers is basically not just crime, being a role model for the public and doing, helping out in any way possible.
Whether they are police or firefighters, first responders share a common bond. They all have a strong sense of duty and service to the communities they protect.
That camaraderie would be life-saving in March of 2021 when a fire ignited in the Smith home. But on the evening of March 6th, a fire was the last thing on Ruby Smith's mind when she sat down to rest on her living room recliner.
I had just came home, so I was going to sit down in my easy chair and take a short nap.
Ruby barely had time to close her eyes when her daughter rushed in from outside.
My daughter and her kids were in the backyard playing, and she ran and said, "Mom, get out, there's a fire." And I'm like, "A fire?" So I jumped up out of the chair, and then I ran out the door. And when I got to the door, I said, "Oh, my car."
The fire had started in the garage. The flames had already engulfed her car and were now moving quickly toward the house. Her neighbors, Josie and Nick Aragon, lived next door.
We were just gonna get ready to go out and have dinner. All of a sudden, somebody started knocking on the door. Somebody just saying there's a fire next door, so we ran out.
At first, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what? So we ran out, and sure enough, it went fast. It was so fast, it was devastating.
I have my motorhome parked not too far, right between my house and Ruby's house. So I jumped in and got my motorhome out of there. But then Josie ran over there to go see Ruby.
There was Miss Josie. She snatched me and said, "Get over here, girl." And they shoved me that way.
Her neighbor Josie pulled Ruby to a safe area outside the house. But then, panic set in.
And Josie says, "Where are the kids? Where's the kids? I don't see them, I don't see them."
Coming up, a brave police officer puts his life on the line to save 4 children surrounded by flames.
My instinct was just get there as fast as I could into the backyard.
But first, something to keep you safe.
For many of us, pets are an important part of our families and should be included in our emergency plans.
We recommend having current ID tags on your pets at all times. So if in the event of a disaster, your pet becomes separated, first responders can more easily reunite you.
This is a great example on how to be prepared before a disaster strikes. And remember, try to save your pet if you can, but never at the expense of your own safety.
On the evening of March 6, 2021, a fast-moving fire broke out in the home of Ruby Smith. Ruby's neighbors had pulled her to safety, but her daughter and her 4 grandchildren, who had been playing in the backyard, were nowhere to be found.
We were looking for the kids because we stood up over the fence and we couldn't find them.
To make matters worse, the backyard was surrounded by an 8-foot-tall cinder block fence, too high for them to climb over. The only escape route? On fire.
My poor neighbor here was already outside, and they were looking for the kids. It was devastating.
But as luck would have it, Officer Noel Trevino happened to be across the street.
Me and my partner were actually just finishing up a call. As soon as we left the apartment complex, we could see the smoke and flames coming from the home. So I just relayed to my dispatcher that, to make sure the Phoenix Fire was aware of the fire.
After calling the fire department, Officer Trevino and his partner found Ruby outside.
I was able to approach her and just basically verify that if there was anybody else inside the home, and she told me that there were kids still in the backyard.
By this time, the Phoenix Fire Department was already on the way.
Agent 44 was dispatched for reports of a house fire around 6:47. A lot of fire coming from one section of the house, which was the carport.
But there was no time to lose.
When she told me there was kids in the backyard, my first instinct was to get back there as fast as I can. The longer I wait, the more possibility of injury to, happen. So my instinct was just get there as fast as I could.
Even though they may not be trained in certain types of rescue, you can always count on first responders to do whatever they can to help those in need.
They're kids at the end of the day, they're innocent, so I'm gonna do my best to get, back there and help them out and make sure they weren't in any harm's way.
Officer Trevino rushed to the only entrance to the backyard, but the gate was locked.
My thought process at it, I could jump it, but if I'm gonna try to get a family out, I gotta make sure there's a passageway for them, so I ended up kicking it.
With the fire blazing, Officer Trevino found Ruby's daughter and her 4 children huddled by the side fence. Luckily, a quick-thinking neighbor lowered a ladder down to the family to climb back over.
At that point, just helped her get over the fence into the neighbor's yard where they were, thankfully, very nice to help them.
By the time they kept pushing me that way, the policeman had came back around there because they had gotten everybody out. So he told me that everybody's out, everybody's okay.
We're gonna take care of it, okay? They're all okay, that's all that matters.
Ruby was stunned by how quickly it all went down.
It just happened so fast because I called my son to tell him about it, and he told me it was 6:38. So within 8 minutes, it just happened just like that.
With everyone out and safe, the fire department then started attacking the blaze.
We started at that carport, which was on that east side of that house, started hitting the fire there. A squad 44 went to the roof and cut 2 ventilation holes. And the reason why we cut ventilation holes is to remove those superheated gases. And then we were able to knock that fire out pretty quickly.
The firemen and the police, incredible how they work together. By the time we got out, they had the roadblock. Firemen were on top of the roof, cutting a hole in the roof. Everybody got involved, the neighbors, strangers, whoever was there, they all pitched in.
Unfortunately, the fire had destroyed most of the Smiths' home. But once again, the community stepped up.
More people, not even their neighbors, are coming. They were giving them gift cards, helping out with money so they could buy clothes. Everything they had was inside that house, so they were helping them out in that way. They can get something to eat, place to stay, and food and stuff like that.
We're all well. We've been taken care of very well. I'm just surprised to know that, people will, just snap to you like that. We have a roof over our head. We don't have to worry about anything that we need.
Ruby's home is now being rebuilt in the hopes that she and her family can soon return to their neighborhood. But for now, they're just grateful for all the people who came to their rescue.
I would just tell them thank you, and I can't say thank you enough. You did what you did, and you did it willingly. So I would just say thank you for helping get my family safe.
Through storm chasing and covering disasters throughout my career, I've learned that every storm and disaster is unique, but there is one thing that is the same. After all of the disasters, the people, the neighbors, and just the communities are tighter than ever before after the storm.
These acts of kindness and growth give us all a greater appreciation for the heroes who are there when we need them most.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.